All right. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Xhale podcast. We're doubling up tonight. We weren't expecting to live stream again, but we decided it's way easier to live stream than to record and upload afterwards. So, if anybody's still out there watching, tune in. But if not, I feel you.
We're watching next week.
Watch it next week.
That's when we were going to upload it anyway. It's just easier to do it this way.
So, in this episode, we're going to be talking all about how we prepare and handle fish from spear to table.
Yeah. So you shot a fish, now what?
Now what? You're going to hear all about it today in this episode of the Xhale podcast. I'm your host, Eric Strauss. I'm here with our other host, Rodman Lees. How's it going, Rodman?
Good evening, Eric. Can't complain.
Good evening, indeed. We're back at it.
Back at it again.
From nothing in a month to 2 in one night.
All right. So you spearfish. First thing I want to do is get it out of the water. Rarely do I anchor and spearfish. I'm live boating it. We're taking turns. There's enough people that want to go diving. They don't have to worry about docking the boat. They just got to get it close to me. And so I try to hold the fish up out of the water and get it to the boat. If the fish has any kind of size to it, I'm either gonna stab it, like spike it. I'm going straight between the eyes, straight down in between the eyes. So that'll kill it. But what I like to do, and we're jumping right in.
Oh,
We're in.
There's no hesitation.
I
already got some counterpoints.
Nice. So so that's one way to do it is spike, and that's a pretty popular way to do it. What I like to do is get myself a nice set of ballast gloves, and I just reach in and just rip the gills out. Even on like mangrove snapper, like little, where I'm just sticking a finger in there and ripping the gills out. Those guys, it's almost, I don't want to say it's almost more important on little fish, but those little fish rip off so easy that you just pull those gills out. It's crazy how fast a fish will bleed out once you do that. So pulling the gills out, or at least trying to like break the gills, makes a really big difference. And then I'm holding it out of the water, because blood definitely attracts sharks. I'm not trying to argue that, obviously, but what I've noticed in my experience is more so than blood, the vibrations of a struggling fish is the freaking dinner bell for sharks. That more than anything brings sharks in. So especially if we're 2 or 3 groups of divers in the water in one boat, I'm definitely making sure that I'm preventing that fish from struggling as much as possible in the water. So I'm ripping the gills out or stabbing it to kill it, and then I'm holding it up. Not only is it letting the boat know, like, hey, I got a freaking fish over here, stop picking your nose. It's preventing that fish from, 1, ripping off, and
Turn
2,
off the Bob Marley and get over here.
Exactly. Exactly.
So my technique is to just always stone them from the get-go.
That's true. That's a good technique.
No, obviously that doesn't happen all the time. And there's actually arguments for whether stoning a fish or not stoning a fish is better or worse. And they go both ways. I'm going to say stoning the fish is always better. I've definitely heard points to the other side of that. But my thing for that is, when you stone a fish, there's less adrenaline released in the fish.
And lactic acid
buildup is way less. It makes for an overall better tasting fillet. Now, when you're talking about stabbing fish, so like going in for the final kill with the knife, just full melee style.
The coup de grace.
Yeah. I see a lot of people go in between the eyes and go down. However, I go in from the side, like I was shooting it with the spear gun. I find it's an easier entry path. You're less likely to like stab your hand, because usually you're holding the fish by the gills, and you're coming in from the top. If you've got a long knife, dog, you're tickling them knuckles. So I'll hold the fish from the gills, and honestly, I don't usually knife kill fish all that often. I don't know why. I just don't. It's just not a habit of mine. But when I do, I'm going in from the side and going for that spear gun stone shaft.
Gotcha.
Stone shot.
Yeah.
I find it's just a little bit more effective.
So what I've seen to be the most effective isn't what I do. What I've seen to be the most effective is stabbing it straight down and then giving the knife like a little twist. That seems to just be the light switch.
So you get it in there. I mean, I've stabbed them from the top too. Like
Yeah.
I've done it both ways, but it's like you get the knife in there and give it a twist, but you get it in first, and the fish is like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And you give it the twist, and they're like, but
Yeah, just open the mouth. What I do growing up, and so I'm still kind of guilty of it just because it's habit, is I never had like a weight belt. I never dove with a dive knife. I dove with short fins, mask, scuba mat, like black skirt. You gotta have a black skirt, but like a medium volume mask. That Cressy Matrix is what I've dove. I found that mask when I was like 15, and if it ever broke, I just went out and bought another one. I didn't. There was no like messing around. And I still to this day love that mask. I have it in my dive bag right now, and I've like it's not the one that I dive with all the time, but whatever.
it's the same one you've had since you were 6 too.
Yeah, and then bam, I put that on there. Mask, snorkel, Mars Avante fins, wood shooter, and a sling, or wood shooter and a shaft.
Classic combo.
Classic combo. So I'd shoot something and it'd be going crazy. I would just take the tip of my spear and spike it with that. And I've said that a bunch of times. People are like, oh, that's good. Like, I'm always shocked that more people don't do that. It's very, you already got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whatever. That's what I did, but I really only ever did it with snapper because I would stringer snapper. And if I shot anything bigger than that, it was going on the boat right away. But for snapper, I'd like throw them in my board shorts pockets and keep going, you know? Maybe not the best idea, but so here's the argument. You did one side, you did hey, spike it so you can, so it doesn't build lactic acid and adrenaline. Makes the fillet taste a little bit better. The other side to not do it is if you kill it, the heart stops and it's not going to bleed out.
Yep.
If it's not dead, the heart's still pumping, and so it's just going to keep pumping the blood out. It's not really going to be pumping it out of the hole that you put into it with the shaft, because that's mostly blood coming from the veins, which are very small. You need like articular bleeding, so you're gonna like rip the right. That's a word. Arterial.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, that's probably better.
I'm a fish doctor, so
there you go. So from the gills, or cutting like the flap of meat that connects the head to the body, the chin to the body. The collar.
Yeah, that's usually where I go for. So like where the gills come down, basically where the bottom of the gills meets like the body of the fish.
Yeah,
is like the thinner piece of
meat.
But if you get in there at the right angle, you're hitting, I don't know if it's an artery or a vein. I'm not that good of a fish doctor.
Definitely arteries.
Whatever it is. I mean, well, there's a difference between an artery and the vein. They can both be the same size.
I don't know.
Anyway, one is going to the heart, one's coming away from the heart.
Can you have a tiny artery?
I believe so, yeah. All right, now we're getting way too deep into that side of it.
All right.
The point being, there's a big pipe with a lot of blood going through it right there. And I definitely get that side of the argument. Like, I definitely see why that is an argument to, still have that blood flow going when you do that. And I mean, I don't have an argument against that, other than, yep, you're probably going to build up more lactic acid and adrenaline in the fish. Now, whether or not that makes a big difference in how the fillet turns out, honestly, couldn't tell you.
Yeah. I mean, they invented the Ika spike in Japan because they say that it tastes better, and those guys take. There are certain Japanese people that take whatever they do very, very seriously,
and to the extreme. I will say, bleeding a fish definitely makes a difference in overall quality.
Huge. And so you've done it one of two ways. You've either killed it or you've chucked it in the boat. If you chucked it in the boat, the next step for me is to exactly do what you said. Is to bleed the fish. What I like to do is, instead of chucking it straight into the slurry, I'm gonna like exactly cut out the gills if I haven't already, or cut that, we'll call it the collar. I don't know, the jugular. just cut the jugular,
The main pipe.
the main pipe, and let it make sure that the fish is dead before I put it into the ice. If you're waiting, the fish isn't it's there's like levels to it, but the best thing you can do is let it bleed out on the deck. Let all that blood go until it's dead, and then once it's dead, I'm putting it into the ice. And this is one of my bigger pet peeves, and something that's like very easily remedied is people that either don't treat the fish right or don't treat it right enough. So I've been on boats where it's like, I didn't bring a lot of ice because that's bad luck, man. You bring a lot of ice, you're not going to shoot anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like, first of all, get your silly superstitions out of here. I'm not about that.
This is the man who's swatting bananas out of people's hands.
But it's more so just to bust people's balls than it is because I think bananas are bad. A banana peel makes a good strip bait.
Hook that thing on a cobia jig.
There you go. I think that if you're gonna kill a fish, you have like the responsibility to treat it right, and even if you don't feel that you have the responsibility to, you're gonna eat it or give it away. You might as well treat it as best as you can. And ice is cheap; it's so cheap. So what I recommend is 2-to-1 fish to ice. So I'm 20 pounds of fish, 10 pounds of ice. So basically half of the total weight of fish you're having in ice. And I'm gonna put that ice. And another thing that I see people do is they'll have the ice in like the drinks cooler or whatever, lunch cooler, until they catch a fish, and they'll take like the block of ice out of that cooler and put it in the fish rocks with ice. You've already messed up. You got to cool that ice box down. It's gonna be 90 degrees in there. You throw the fish in that sauna. By the time the ice cools it's already gonna be mush. So what I'll do is I'll put maybe 20 pounds of ice, because ice is just cheap, man. Put it into that fish box, and just let it cool it down. I'm not gonna do anything from then. We shoot a fish, great. I'm gonna bleed it, and so I'm gonna, I'm just gonna rip the gills out, cut its throat, and when I go to once that fish is dead, once I go to put it in the ice, I'm gonna throw it in there, and then I'm gonna take a bucket of salt water, that seawater, and throw it in there too. That salt water, and try to make like a slurry. If you're, it makes such a difference in cooling down the fish, having that ice being completely surrounding it, instead of just like, all right, there's a bag of ice with a fish on one side and it's 90 degrees on the other side.
Yeah.
Really making sure that it's submerged in that ice water, and that because there's salt in seawater, obviously, it will get to freezing temperatures. You can literally get 32 degree, 31 degree liquid water when you have salt in it. So it's literally freezing cold, and you'll chill that fish all the way to the bone.
You can get it down to 20 degrees Fahrenheit by adding salt.
Dang. That's freaking cold.
Yep.
Have you ever been in a restaurant and had someone squeeze an ice cube, but you put salt on it and squeeze an ice cube?
Yeah, you hold it on your forearm.
Yeah, we always did it. You had to squeeze it as hard as you can, and it just it literally burns you because it's so freaking cold.
In Boy Scouts, we would take a piece of ice cube out of the ice maker that was like a big grid, so it's like a block of it.
Yeah.
Put salt on your forearm and see who could hold the grid on the longest, and see who would get like the best tic-tac-toe board.
There you go. I'm fun in the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, right.
But it's that same principle, right? So you're cooling that fish down as fast as possible and as thoroughly as possible. And that goes too with thick fish. If you're shooting hogfish and snappers, stuff like that, thinner fish, you don't need that much ice, because it's gonna like that 3-to-1, 2-to-1 ratio is gonna work. But if you're shooting you're going to the Bahamas and you're targeting big black grouper, them fuckers are thick. You're gonna need more ice. You're gonna really need to make sure that slurry's going there. If you're catching tuna, you're running out of Freeport to catch tuna. Though you catch a 30-pound tuna, that thing's like a foot thick. You need to make sure that not only are you bleeding it, but you're that slurry going.
And another, when you're targeting fish that big, let's say grouper, because that's what most guys like. That's one of the bigger fish that people are targeting spearfishing in the
Mm-hmm.
Bahamas or anywhere around here, really. When you get to that caliber of fish, as far as thickness goes, it obviously takes more time, like you're saying, for it to chill it down to the core.
Yeah.
Um, a good thing to do with bigger fish like that is, in addition to bleeding it, gut the fish as well. Open up that body cavity and let that slurry and let that ice get into the body cavity as well. It's going to help cool that fish down faster and more effectively. Unless you got a world record fish, gutting your fish, wait before you gut it.
Yeah.
You shoot a 60-pound black, it, it's 60 pounds.
Yeah. That ain't no world record. That's a good point. Cobia too. Like anything with some thickness, but it's not gonna hurt to gut your hogfish. It's not gonna hurt to gut
No, for
whatever.
Anything. Yeah.
That's definitely not gonna hurt it. So
so to touch on that as well, that it's definitely not going to hurt it. So one thing that I've kind of gotten from you recently is cooking fish whole, and we'll get into cooking fish in a little bit. But cooking whole snapper and whole hogfish, and I've done like triple tail, sheep's head, I've done all kinds of stuff now, and it's freaking amazing.
So good.
Whether it's in the oven or fried or whatever, a whole fish is, I don't know what it is about it. It's so much better than fillets.
Yeah.
Like significantly.
And you waste nothing. Like I'm pretty good at filleting fish, not to like toot my own. I'm not commercial grade filleter, but I mean, you could read a newspaper through that carcass. There's still a lot of wasted meat.
Yeah. But my point being, anything that I know I'm going to cook whole, which I'll shoot snapper just because I know I'm going to cook them whole. Like I'll shoot a 12-inch mangrove snapper.
Hell yeah.
Because I know I'm going to cook it whole. And I will gut that thing, bleed it, gut it, pull the gills out, slice it open in the water.
Yeah.
Because it flushes everything better in the water. Everything's out. You get like, there's a name for it, but up against the spine, there's like a pocket of like, I don't know.
Black
stuff.
It's
like black shit.
Black shit, yeah.
It's got a name. I don't remember what it's called, but you can like scrape that out. And I'll get that thing essentially ready to cook in the water after I've shot it. If I know I'm going to cook it whole.
I think that slurry too, adding that seawater to the ice helps the whole bleed out process too, because the blood's not going to coagulate. Fish blood is amazing at coagulating. I'm always impressed by how well it does, because you get a little bit on the boat and you go to hose it off and it's already like scabs,
Yeah.
But having that salt water definitely helps bleed the fish as well in the ice box.
For sure. And that gets us into another point that it's something I don't always do, but I always try to do. A lot of times I'll just plain forget. But on my way in, I try to get a 5-gallon bucket full of clean, clear salt water, ocean water.
Yeah.
So coming back from the Bahamas, I'll try and do that like in the middle of the Gulf Stream,
yeah,
right? Because that's where it's going to be the clearest. Get plenty of that dissolved plastic in there,
Exactly.
microplastics.
Exactly.
But the reason I do that, when we get back to the dock and we're cleaning everything, I clean my fillets fully out, take the skin out, take all the bones out. I don't leave like stomach meat hanging with like ribs in it and stuff like that. A lot of people just like even just take the skin off and leave all the bones. They're like, oh, I'll get the bones out later. I ain't about that. I'm getting that thing basically ready to eat. I don't even touch it with fresh water.
Yeah.
Fresh water destroys saltwater fish meat.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how it affects freshwater fish meat, but it literally deteriorates any saltwater fish meat as soon as it touches it. You'll notice
You
it
can
gets like
feel it.
You can
yeah,
feel
it's
it.
like rough. It'll get a rough texture, and I think it's a catch-22. It starts with how you ice the fish. If you poorly ice the fish, if you have a hot fish box where you threw one bag of ice in there and all the fish on top of that, and if your fish comes out like pot marked with like where it was touching the ice, it's one color, and then where it wasn't, it's another color, which isn't a good sign. The fish is super slimy when you go to fillet it, and it's just sliding all over the fillet table. If you ice your fish properly,
You pick it up and there's a 3-foot long loogie hanging off that's like
Yeah.
that big around.
right? Like if you when you start taking icing your fish seriously, you should take every step of spearfishing seriously. It's literally more fun that way when you take it more seriously. The fish will not be slimy. It'll have like a slight slickness to it, but it's not gonna have that like the knife won't cut
Yeah,
it.
it's like holding a
Sliminess.
live fish that you just caught.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not these big, but it's a noticeably less slimy at the end of the day.
it's
So
slimy instead of loogie.
yeah, exactly. And my point to that is people will rinse it out with fresh water because fresh water just cuts that slime.
Mm.
You hit it with the hose, it's complete. It's all that slime's gone. You can just carve right into it with a knife. But if it's iced properly, you're not gonna have that slime, and then meat is gonna be much firmer, which makes it way easier to fillet. You fillet it like a pro right out of the gate because it holds up to it. Yeah, it's just easier to cut, separates from the bone easier. That makes a big point. And to what you were saying of grabbing that saltwater, I got a buddy Jay Merton, and he was really big, and he's the one that really taught me he's the first person that I saw taking it really seriously. Brining. So he would, instead of doing like seawater in there, he would do seawater, but he had that like Calcutta Bait Company. It looked like a big, I don't even know, a big salt shaker, I guess, but it was brining salt, and it was like rock salt, but I mean like confectioner sugar ground fine. I mean just the
It's
finest
basically
salt.
salt that's not certified
Exactly.
to put on a table.
Exactly, but it's
got some rock in it still.
it's potent though. It doesn't take much to make something super salty. So you just give a couple shakes in that, and then add the seawater to it. And it's super salty, but we'd use it for the same thing like you're doing with the seawater. And the seawater might be better, but we'll go back, fill up the 5-gallon bucket full of water and a couple shakes of that brining salt, and you could use. I think more than he bought it because you could buy the freaking gallon jug of it for $1. You know, it's just super cheap.
And it's probably, I hit escape. Let me make sure that didn't do anything. It's probably better to do it that way because you're getting seawater. There's live stuff in seawater, right? So if you're filling up a 5-gallon bucket full of tap water and adding brine salt into it, it's probably a better way to do it.
Yeah, whatever. It's just salty. So, you need to rinse the fish. Like you should. We'll fillet it out before you rinse it because it's not slimy. So you fully fillet it, you skin it, and then you drop the fillet into the water. And also, like, how often are you filleting it? You get in the pile of freaking fillets, and all the flies are like buzzing
Sitting
around.
on it,
And
yeah.
you drop it in that ice water, and you're not gonna worry about any.
And it gets all
anything
the
like
scales
that.
oget gets all like the little pieces of stuff you don't want on there off.
Yep.
I know on our fillet table, like the fillet table itself is deteriorating, so like you get little flakes of starboard in it, and it rinses everything off without ever having to touch it with fresh water. Because like we said, the fresh water just destroys that meat.
Yeah,
right?
it comes out of that. So it's ice, obviously, ice, hose water, and a little bit of that brine. But it comes out as like a firm fillet with all the flakes still together, and it's smooth. Like you touch it and it's smooth.
It's not rough. Doesn't feel like
exactly.
it gets grainy when you get too much water.
That's a
on it,
perfect
fresh
way to
water.
describe it. You hit that with a hose, all of a sudden it's super grainy. It's crazy how that works. It feels like hamburger meat.
Yeah, it turns
almost.
into fish pudding.
Yeah, and then as far as filleting goes, you're saying that you're getting it completely ready for the table. This guy Trey Reagan, one of my buddies, one of our buddies, he was the first person that I saw that really like filleted it out to like a portion size fillet. I mean, he wasn't just like cutting the bloodline off, like filleting it, cutting the bloodline off. Like he was like getting like medallions of meat. Like he was really particular about how he filleted the fish. And again, I was like, dang, he's taking it seriously. Made me step up my game to do it. And it was like really like the first time we'd ever done. And he shot like a yellow jack. Like it wasn't even something like the trophy game fish. But by the end of it, you're like, dang, I want to eat that. I'll eat that sushi right now. It was so impressive looking. So ever since then, not only am I like trying to like do a good job in filleting and not wasting anything, but I'm making sure there's no like little pin bones from the stomach. Like I'm making sure that I'm filleting over those. And especially if you have a duller knife, you're trying to like kind of hack through it, and you're gonna break some of those bones and cut it. I'll go back and make sure that I'm like feeling all those and cutting that out, not getting any of that stomach lining in there. If there is bloodline, I'm being extremely particular on cutting that out and just getting those perfect fillets. It makes spending some time there makes a huge difference. And if you've iced the fish properly, it is so much faster and easier than dealing with warm fish. It is crazy the difference that makes.
Yeah, for sure. One thing just to touch on with actually filleting fish too. Filleting is not like it's something you got to learn how to do. You don't just like look at a online thing and YouTube a video on how to fillet a fish and immediately you're an expert. Like it takes a while to learn. My dad wouldn't even let me touch a fish, like an actual fish to fillet, until I could fillet a ballyhoo perfectly.
Dang. Dang. That's a good test.
Yeah.
Such a soft freezer burn ass ballyhoo.
You like touch it with your fingers and it flattens out, you know?
Yeah.
But my point being, don't be like bummed out if you're not filleting well, but be super particular about how you like treat that fillet. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're not getting all the meat off the fish, yeah, take the time. It's going to take a few fish, and you'll eventually get that part down. Don't worry about getting everything off the fish. Worry about how you treat that fillet.
Yeah.
Don't put it in the fresh water.
A sharp knife and a glove.
Sharp knife.
It makes a huge difference.
Get everything off of the fillet. Get all the bones out.
Yeah.
Flip it over where you just skinned it. Get all the white crap off.
Yeah.
You don't want that subdermal fish skin on there.
Man, speaking of which, one of my biggest pet peeves is if we go like dolphin fishing or we shoot dolphin, and I'll be filleting one out and going to skin it, and the other guy freaking peels the skin off of it.
Off and there's like gray
I'm like,
shit
what?
left all over it.
You
like
lazy bastard. I treat it right, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And dolphin too, that's a pretty white meat fish. They get a good bloodline, man. That is definitely a fish that I don't see people bleed a lot that should be bled.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that one in particular is a big one.
And that's another good thing too when you're filleting fish. Another good point is to remove bloodlines. I see a lot of people flip the fillet over. You'll see like the red strip going all the way down, and they cut vertically straight down the middle of the fillet and basically split the fillet in half, removing the bloodline. You don't have to do that. If you cut at a V, the bloodline tapers down towards the other side. So you start at the widest point of the bloodline, cut a nice V all the way down the fillet on one side, cut a nice V all the way down the fillet on the other side, and you can peel that out. Keeps the whole thing as one piece. You don't have to split it down the middle, and it just gets rid of it. I don't like to, if I'm freezing fish, I don't like to like freeze it with the bloodline or any of that like white underskin. I don't want any of that on it. I feel like that's the kind of stuff that affects how a fish freezes and tastes after it's frozen.
For sure. And freezing fish is a good point. I honestly, I don't freeze a ton of fish. I either eat it or give it away. And my whole like, I'm pretty particular, and we didn't touch this on the last episode where we were talking about trips, but I went on a trip this summer and got skunked in West End in the Bahamas, and it's because I didn't see any fish that I wanted to shoot. I saw a ton of fish, but I'd rather just go back and let it grow and shoot it again. Like, I know that I'm going to get another opportunity, maybe not on that exact fish, but I'm going to get another opportunity to shoot fish. I'm not trying to there's enough stuff in my freezer that I can eat. Yeah. I'm much rather have that fish grow and eat fresh fish. The difference in taste alone, but and just like my personal spearfishing ethics is, if I've shot 20 pounds of fish, let's say I shoot like a yellow jack, a decent grouper and 2 hogs, man, that's way more fish than I'm going to eat. I'll drive the boat for a little bit, or I'll just be looking for the trophy. I got enough fish to eat.
Yeah.
I'm only looking for that trophy. But sometimes I'll shoot a big grouper. Well, that's 20, let's say that's 10 pounds of fillet. That's a lot of freaking fish to eat. It's not like I'm eating a pound of fish in a meal. I might be ordering eating a quarter pound of fish in a meal. So that's, that's 40 meals. If I was eating it by myself, that's a ton. I'm obviously going to freeze some of that because I don't want it to go to waste. I'm same thing that salt, going from that salt water, I'll put it right into paper towels and try to dry it as much as I can before I freeze it. That's a big thing. That's a big thing for me, is really trying to freeze that fish as much as possible.
Yeah, I see so many people fillet their fish, rinse it with fresh water, stick it straight in a Ziploc bag with like 6 other fillets, seal it up with air in it, and throw it in the freezer. And all that together, and you end up with like
Big old yellow frostbitten.
yeah, like in the bottom of the bag is like a pink, like Laffy Taffy looking airhead,
Yeah.
nasty like frozen chunk. That's just stinking the fish out, and all it is like blood.
Yeah.
And I don't want that in there, dude. So that gets me to the next thing is, when I do freeze fish, I prefer not to, but if I do freeze fish, obviously it's rinsed in salt water. I never touch it with the fresh water, even like through the freezing process. But I'll take single fillets, maybe 2 at the most, dry them off completely, paper towel, pat them all off, get as much moisture as possible off of them,
Yeah.
and I vacuum seal those things.
That's the way to go. Freaking Costco sells vacuum food savers.
They're $100.
They're $100.
Anybody who fishes
they
and
last
spearfishes, you can spend way more than $100 just to go bottom fishing for a day out of Jupiter,
Yeah.
or wherever.
Yeah.
I've spent more than $100 just fishing off a dock before.
You throw rod, reel, bait, all that stuff in it, you're spending $100. Buy a food. It's a necessary piece of gear in the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be geared out to catch fish. A food saver is part of that.
It makes the biggest difference. Doing the vacuum bag fish versus just throwing a bunch of fillets in a bag. I don't even want to eat fish out of a Ziploc bag.
Frozen fish out of a Ziploc bag is gross.
Tastes like shit.
Yeah, it's gross. I'm speaking of tasting good or bad. Couple recipes real quick.
There we go. Finish it off.
So growing up, I had like my go-to recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Medium high heat, say 75%.
All right.
Big old pad of butter in there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, big old pad. And you just let it rock. You just let it go. You're not putting anything in there. And it's going. And it's going. And you're getting a little nervous. You let it keep going. You want that to all brown out.
All right.
You get brown, then you throw some more butter in there, cools it back off a little bit, then you put the fish in. On the fish, you've coated it in garlic salt and lemon pepper. It's got to be Lowry's, though.
All right.
It's the only brand I trust.
Tried and true.
Yellow top for the lemon pepper, green top for the garlic salt. Dust it in that stuff, in that double brown butter sauce. That is delicious. That was my go-to
All right.
for years. And you can do anything with that. You want to go fish tacos. You want to just eat that straight up with some rice. But that's the go-to.
Here's my go-to before you get into your next one.
All right.
We call it's technically, I believe it's called island steamed or island style.
Ooh.
But we call it Andy style because when my buddy Andy was the first one who introduced me to this. But you take a big piece of tin foil. You make yourself like a tin foil vessel, right?
Yeah.
You lay all your fillets in there, salt and pepper, any other spice that you might be interested in, but usually just salt and pepper is enough. We run green beans, peppers, and onions along the top of the fillets.
Ooh.
Salt and pepper on top of that, a little bit of olive oil, butter if you choose, whatever you want. I usually do the olive oil.
I'm a Kerrygold kind of guy.
Anyway, then you cover the top of that and kind of like seal the whole thing up into one pocket, like you're doing a campfire potato or something like that, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing's on the grill, let it chooch. By the time like everything is steamed up and done, dude, phenomenal. And you can eat it. It's vegetables and fish all in one. So good.
Nice.
Super easy too. You
Yeah,
can do
that's
it
awesome.
anywhere. You can do it on a fire if you need to, if you're like camping somewhere.
Yeah. So that's my whole fish. That's a perfect whole fish recipe.
Mm-hmm.
My whole fish recipe, I throw a little bit of Asian flair into it. I'd take like a big Ziploc bag and I'll throw honey in it. I'll throw some soy sauce. I'll throw ginger, and you can get like these tubes of ginger that are in the produce section. I don't know if you remember from your Publix days, but it's like
I know.
it's a tube of ginger.
Yeah, it's
like
it's a green cap.
Yeah.
Looks like toothpaste thing.
Exactly. Big squirt of that in there. A little bit of soy sauce and some hot sauce and a little bit of water. If you do straight soy sauce, you don't cut it with water. It's a little bit too salty for my taste. So a little bit of soy sauce in there, or sorry, a little bit of water in there to cut the soy sauce. You can let that marinade. Let's say you're not going to eat it the first night. Let that marinade really good. But if not, I'll do the same thing. I'll either bake it in like a baking dish, or if it's on the grill, wrap it up in tinfoil, do it the exact same way. That, and at the end you throw some lemon on it. That's real good.
Here's another one for you.
Ooh.
Another one of my favorites. Shout out to AJ for this one.
All right.
This is probably one of the best fish recipes I've ever had. Works really well. Doesn't work well on everything, but it works really well on like your clearer fillets. So like wahoo, tuna, even like getting into yellow jacks, different mackerels,
Okay.
stuff like that. Cobia works really well for it. Like your meatier, a lot of times like clear, you know what I mean, like translucent.
Yeah.
Translucent. Works really well for that stuff. But seared, not cooked all the way through, you gotta get yourself some candied pecans.
Ooh.
Crushed. If you can't get them pre-crushed, then you got to crush them yourself. Hoisin sauce, and
Right.
I believe a little bit of sesame oil. So you're gonna
Alright.
sesame.
That's some potent stuff, sesame.
Oh,
You can go heavy-handed with that.
So good
Easy,
though.
though.
So good.
Yeah.
You're gonna cut little medallions, right? You know, just nice small bite-sized ones.
Yep.
You're gonna coat in sesame oil, hoisin sauce, and then you're gonna dust it with that the candied cashews. Did I say cashews originally, or did I say pecans?
I think you said pecans.
You want cashews, not
Gotcha.
pecans.
All right.
And then you're gonna sear all that together. Freaking fire! I mean, the flav is out of this world.
Nice. All right. I got another one for you. This is
Hit
like
me.
my go-to sheep's head.
Okay,
And you wanna
I like it.
get somebody with some
strong.
sheep's head? I fry it. The key to this is getting a thermometer. People are like, oh, I throw like a little bit of whatever in there, and if it sizzles, it's good. No, you want like a Dutch oven, kind of, not a crock pot, but you want something that you can fry in. You throw it on the stove. You throw a thermometer in there. Don't joke around. It's $5. Go to Publix, buy a thermometer. You want it $3.75. You don't want it $3.50. You don't want it $400. You want it $3.75. And I'm telling you, that makes such a difference. If it's too low, it's gonna get greasy. If it's too hot, you're gonna burn it. You want $3.75, just take it seriously. In a bowl, you put flour, just Wondra, whatever flour you got, all purpose flour will work. Tablespoon of baking powder. Gotta do baking powder. Salt, some cayenne, and then some Old Bay.
All right.
Then you take a Yingling, 2 Yinglings.
Ooh.
You crack one,
Uh-huh.
you drink it.
Uh-huh.
You crack the second, you pour it in. There you go. Cheers. And then you mix all that up, and it'll turn into like batter. You just a beer batter, if you will. And then you let the oil heat up. And now a lot of people will do eggs. I'm not a fan of the egg drenching.
No,
you don't do
the egg.
you don't do egg.
I do milk.
Ooh, here's what I do. Cornstarch. You do cornstarch.
All right.
Dust it in cornstarch. You shake off any extra. Then you dunk it in the batter. Just one dunk. You're not trying to load this thing up. You just all the way submerge it, all the way pull it out, and then slide it into the oil.
All right.
You can put it however big your fry daddy is. As long as it ain't touching, you can load it up. That's a big one. The last one
The fried
before
daddy.
I sign off is for tacos, fish taco sauce. That white sauce is key. I used to live out in San Diego. All fish tacos come with that white sauce. That white sauce is freaking.
Like the Asian white sauce.
I don't
what
know.
you're talking
I'm
about?
gonna call it San Diego white
Like
sauce
vegetable
because that's
sauce?
all I know. No, it's mayo based.
Yeah.
So I do like mayo, sour cream, a little bit of milk to thin it, and then sriracha and lime, salt, mix that up. But the best one I've ever had is a cup of heavy cream with a splash of buttermilk and then chipotle Tabasco, salt and lime. And you mix that up, and it's freaking fire.
You're getting in it heavy.
Dude, that white sauce is
You're taking
freaking
off.
money. I'm out of here.
All right. On that note, we're going to go ahead and end this episode. Thank you guys for tuning into this one. Maybe we'll try and get those recipes like written out underneath. We'll see. I don't know. I'm just getting some pretty specific stuff, so I don't know if we're going to be able to actually repeat that. Anyways, thank you guys again for tuning in. Be sure to check out our sponsors, Ballast Freediving, Florida Freedivers, and Teach Me to Freedive, all awesome companies that work with us. We're filming here at Florida Freedivers, awesome location here in South Florida. Definitely come check them out if you need any gear. Check out Teach Me to Freedive for any FII courses. Ballast has got some awesome gear you can actually buy here at Florida Freedivers as well. So we will see you in the next one. We're out.